Welcome to our webinar, Harnessing AI for Financial Management, Smarter Budgeting, Forecasting, and Strategic Success. If you enjoy this topic, please explore our YouTube channel for more videos and follow us on LinkedIn to be in the know for event announcements and speaking engagements. Presenting today's discussion is OnePlan's Jim Patterson.
Thanks, and appreciate all of you who are joining us today for this topic. You know, it's really an extension of an overall theme these days about AI and how we can apply it in our daily lives. And today it's about harnessing AI in the specific area of financial management as it relates to project, program, and portfolio management. And with that, let's just get started with just a quick overview of some of the basic precepts on the project portfolio management financial discipline. You know, one of the things that's key is it really touches almost all aspects of the project portfolio management discipline. You know, yes, we can talk about budgets overall, but the idea here is that when it's the, whether it's intake and demand and the pipeline management, there's a cost element of that with estimating and deciding where we're going to place our capital investments, strategic planning and how it fits into that. The resource management, whether they're dollars, whether they're human resources or other types of resources that have a financial impact, that's part of the financial dimension here as well. Change control. Whenever time we have a change request or want to modify our scope, what are the cost impacts is part of the discussion. And then overall financial management, what is the value of the project? We're going to talk about a little bit more the trend towards value of projects as opposed to just cost. How it relates to strategic objectives and what we're investing towards those strategic objectives. Then there's just the general financial controls. Whether we're using older school earned value or other project financial techniques, this aspect needs to be addressed to meet the needs of the way you need to address financials for your particular organization. And then risk management, cost is always a part of that. So for portfolio, program, and project level financial management, it is a key dimension of your project constraints and also a metric for your performance measurement. But even more modern approaches that we'll talk about, like scaled, agile, and lean portfolio management, they still provide for budgets in a more flexible manner, but there's still guardrails there that we have to manage to. So overall financial management needs to have that initial planning. They have the estimating of costs. You generally will lock in a budget at some level, and then you want to control and manage to that budget as best you can. Those are some of the high level precepts. Now, some folks may do this more top down versus bottom up, and in more top down financials, you have more project level budgeting. And you might have financial categories and cost types that you apply against that particular project or initiative. Likely there's time phase financial value so we can understand when the spends are going to happen. And then you might incorporate both labor and non-labor costs in those types of things. Then there's the bottom up financials. Sometimes people build detailed execution plans and a scheduling tool or what have you. And there may be costs on tasks and resources assigned to those tasks. Those resources have rates and they may roll up to the project, program, and portfolio. And it can be accurate if you have the discipline and the skill to do that, but it also requires maintenance of data at a more granular detail than at that project level with the more top-down financials. And we have many clients who do a combined approach. They do top-down early in the process to size it up, to justify the project or the initiative. And then once it gets to a point where a more detailed schedule is in place, that bottoms up will have more detail, and maybe they may manage to that and compare those early assumptions with the current information and see whether or not our earlier assumptions still apply. We'll show how OnePlan addresses all these aspects. Now, a complete solution would have a standard integrated and logical approach for all this stuff and a single source for the portfolio planning and budgeting, the request and approval of dollars, capital budgeting, approval of CapEx, and project forecasting, and forecasting, tracking, and reporting ongoing for individual projects across the board. The idea here is to not have this fragmented, to not have it disconnected in different systems. So some trends in the marketplace today is, first and foremost is AI. And many people are starting to leverage the benefits, or at least exploring the benefits of AI-driven forecasting and predictive analytics. The idea is to leverage these things to better predict project costs, where we're going to end up, maybe do better optimization of our budgets, and maybe identify financial risks and issues before they become big problems. I alluded to agile and lean budgeting approaches, and this is more of a shift from those rigid annual plans and annual budgets to more iterative and ongoing continuous funding. And the lean financial management aligns with more agile project methodologies that people are moving towards more and more. And then the need for real-time financial tracking and dashboards. If we rely just on the financial system, for example, when the books close at the end of the month and when those are fully validated, by the time that information gets to us, there may be significant information lag, maybe 30, 40 days maybe. And the idea is, do we have mechanisms to track that on a more real-time basis, such that we can make decisions with the right and most current information rather than waiting and maybe having the opportunity to take corrective action pass us by. And then value-based prioritization. On the intake side of things, we want to prioritize what we work on. When we prioritize based on their financial value, strategic alignment, but rather nowadays just on cost and timelines, we're looking at the overall value to the organization and what that means, and based on the characteristics and the attributes of that project that are important to you as an organization. Now, when we talked about the ERP systems, maybe we don't rely on that solely. Maybe our budget and our forecasts are done in a PPM system, but maybe the actuals that are in there with all your purchase orders and invoices and all that stuff, maybe that comes over periodically from your SAP or your Oracle or your Microsoft Dynamics. And the idea is to feed that into the mix and make sure it's fully integrated and not siloed information. And then there's the integrated financial and resource planning. Since a big part of spend in many organizations is the human resource component of that, for example, be able to have that integrated into one place rather than separate spreadsheets or separate systems has a lot of value for organizations. A lot of people are striving to get that integration. So what challenges do we have? Sometimes we're swimming uphill, and people, even though they strive in those trends to do those types of things, what are the challenges that organizations are facing today? Well, they still have issues with inaccurate forecasting and budgeting, largely due to changing scope, costs, and just fluctuations on the situation at hand. Resource allocation and cost tracking. We might have poor visibility into the actual resource utilization, not just the plan, and maybe the over and under allocation of the resources might not give us the complete picture for our decision making. And then the lack of integration with financial systems, which we alluded to, regulatory and compliance risks. In many regulated industries, this is very important, and be able to track this across an entire portfolio of projects across the organization can be paramount to many organizations. And then just difficulty in value measurement and ROI analysis. We may establish a value for a project when we get it justified. We may establish a potential return on investment, but are we actually maybe tracking what the actual benefits realized are, what the value ends up being, and did we get the returns that we thought for? So those are things that people struggle with in many organizations today. The speed of change in organizations today is really accelerating, and it drives changes maybe in business priorities. Maybe the strategies change and the overall priorities change, and this can lead to changes on the fly in funding allocations and budget reassignments, and this can disrupt our planning and tracking very much so. Data accuracy and real-time visibility. If we don't have real-time and accurate information, it can lead to poor decision making. And then just stakeholder misalignment. Maybe we have different conflicting views on financial priorities depending on where we sit in an organization. And maybe we lack clear financial governance structures that can lead to inefficiencies if we're not doing this consistently cross-functionally across an organization. And then many of us are stuck in some legacy tools that maybe lack the automation and modern capabilities that we need. So these are just some common challenges that organizations are finding. Layer on top of that, in the theme of change, is the move to more strategic portfolio management, SPM instead of PPM, or SEM, strategic execution management. And the idea here is that business leaders identify strategies and then need to clearly communicate those across the organization so that the execution leaders, the people that manage the portfolios and the initiatives, choose and execute on the things that align with achieving those strategies that the organization has set out. And then also factors in a lot of other dimensions potentially, the assets and the technology that an organization needs, things like the applications and the products and possibly even the business capabilities and processes that you have that need to be addressed in order to be successful across the board. And this layers in just another level of challenge and complexity into the mix. So strategic alignment at a minimum is where many organizations are trying to get to today. not just having an inventory of projects and the visibility at large, but really trying to do a better job of establishing the value and alignment of the strategies that the organization is driving towards to make sure that we're all rowing in the same direction. Because if we deliver things that don't really matter or things that don't contribute to achieving those strategies, you have to ask yourself, why are we doing it in the first place? Now, OnePlan is a solution that is designed to connect that strategy and execution all in one solution, whether it be just working with OnePlan itself or, as it illustrates here, leveraging other execution tools to fold those into the mix. We can bring those into the mix so that everything is integrated, not siloed and fragmented in any way. So if we look at the components of a complete solution that does this, and we talk about having a place where we can do this comprehensively and not in a fragmented way, there's the strategic part that has your strategies or your OKRs, your enterprise architecture, which might be those applications and products and business capabilities and value streams, et cetera. And even the intake, the ideation and the innovation part of this thing that comes in should be aligned with the OKRs and the strategies and factor in the things that are needed from an enterprise architecture perspective. OnePlan provides you the facilities to do all that. And on the portfolio side of things, the planning, having different views in the portfolio so we can make the right selections to work on the right things, different views and different perspectives, resource capacity plan across it so we understand, do we have the wherewithal from a resource perspective to do it all, and then the detailed financials to whatever level of detail you'd like to capture those financials and track those financials. OnePlan provides the facility to do that. And more importantly, in this fast-changing world, how do you evaluate alternatives when the situation changes on you? And how do you evaluate those quickly and maybe even put them into place to make this a more continuous or at least more frequent type of reallocation of resources than we did with the old annual planning methodologies? On the execution side, the tools to do whether waterfall, agile, or hybrid planning, connecting to the most popular tools out there on the execution side if you want to, though OnePlan doesn't need it. It has its own planning facilities in there. And even to dynamically track issues, risks, changes, lessons learned, and other aspects within that. Now, getting real-time information sometimes means getting real-time status from your teams. So instead of having to collect them around a conference room table or on a Teams or Zoom call, be able to give them a facility where they can see everything that's on their plate, provide feedback on the status and comments and all that stuff directly into the solution, and or report time if it's required by your organization. To have that all comprehensively done in the solution is a key. Now, reporting is definitely part of financial management. So be able to get that as a component of status reports, maybe of dashboards at a variety of levels, and even visualizations about how all these things interrelate with one another, since there's so many components to a full PPM or SPM type of implementation. Ultimately, these tools are here not just for the sake of being there, but to get us the outcomes that we're looking for. Now, we're here today to talk about AI, and OnePlan has incorporated Sophia GPT, which is our AI assistant. We'll talk more about her in a moment. Ultimately, our goal is to do the right work, select the right things to work on for the organization, and to do the work well or do it right. Now, when we talk about the integrated stuff, we're not talking about custom integrations. The OnePlan integrations that I'm speaking about are really pre-built connectors in a platform that we have called OneConnect. Whether it be the work management tools that you see there or the financial tools, we can actually then dynamically, either through APIs or through extracts, be able to get that information routinely into OnePlan or from OnePlan, say from timesheets back to the financial system on a seamless basis for you as an organization. Once again, to bridge that gap in those silos that many organizations are facing today. I think the other key today is, in this age of digital and business transformation, more and more we have to be able to coordinate complex cross-functional enterprise-wide efforts. And OnePlan is designed to be that platform. So whether it be all the aspects of PPM or SPM, or whether it be just the financial component that you're interested in today for this webinar, we can incorporate all the different initiatives and efforts and aspects that we talked about in the solution on a cross-functional basis, and even for, say, an EPMO to look at it all the way across the organization. What we really want is the right balance of governance with flexibility, because not everyone is created the same. Not every part of an organization's work is the same. And in a more unified approach, many organizations just find, how do we get harness this? How do we get everything into a common enterprise view? How do we get people like doing a common governance, on things like funding and project approvals and things like that? And some organizations may want to try to do something in a more unified, single way. And OnePlan supports that very well, but allows you to branch off and have different portfolios for different parts of the organization. Now, what we're finding today is that different departments have specific areas or needs and requirements that need to be accommodated. They may have different workflows and different forms and data elements that they're capturing. Now, some common data elements across all of them may be required, but for the most part, the latitude for each department or business unit to do the things the way they want to do is what we're finding today. And that does not need to be a barrier to having unified or a comprehensive portfolio management solution that gives the organization at the enterprise level the information they need for good decision making. The flexibility is designed to have these things coexist together. And that's why supporting a hybrid of both of these things, depending on where you're at in the organization, is very powerful with OnePlan. Now, from a financial perspective on the capabilities, just to drill in a little bit more on the financial aspects that we're here to talk about today, we integrate the top-down project financials at the project or initiative level, or even at the program or at the portfolio level. We can do these things. And the idea is to put those things in a detailed time phase basis to the level of granularity you want, with categories and roll-ups and different types that we'll talk about, budgets, forecasts, actuals, etc. The idea here is to be able to capture it the way that you need to, and even align them with maybe the cost accounts you have in your financial system. Also, we do resource capacity planning in OnePlan, and resources have rates associated with them. And rather than doing double duty, OnePlan does give you the capability to actually derive the labor costs and the financial aspects of the system directly from the resource capacity plan that you put in, based upon the rate structures that you have out there. So you may not have to re-enter labor costs in a financial plan. It's already done for you in the resource plan. And then maybe all you actually enter into the financial plan are the non-labor costs. Once again, a streamlined way to meet those needs. And then multi-level visibility. You can build your own hierarchies within here so that you can see things at multiple levels, whether it be at the portfolio, across multiple portfolios, programs within those portfolios, maybe by value stream, etc., or down at the project level or within the project. And it's really the flexibility here that gives you to look at it in a variety of ways. And we even provide some pivot capabilities with this information to flexibly look at this in a lot of different slices. Now, with the what if capabilities, we have a full what if scenario modeling capability that I mentioned earlier on that allows us to look at the financial constraints when we're selecting portfolios and the timing of those portfolios and those initiatives, as well as looking at the financial and the resource aspects of that, and even compare different scenarios that we may come up with in order to best choose the scenario that best fits the need that we have at that moment and what the best solution is. Now, ultimately, the goal here is to select the right projects like we talked about. Make sure that they're strategically aligned, they maximize benefits, within the constraints that we have. So we try to optimize that. We have the ability to force mandatory or pre-approved projects. We can model those alternatives, and then we can formalize the project approvals by selecting the optimal portfolio in here. We even have workflow within OnePlan to accommodate a lot of this. So it's really about the fact that it gives us a dynamic way to perform that ongoing portfolio optimization, as opposed to that annual plan that we try to manage, that we used to have to manage to back in the old days. Also, reporting, you got to have that, and the different levels that you get that, whether it be portfolio level financials, whether it be program level financials, whether it be project level financials, or even more granular than that. The idea is we provide you with a set of report templates to get you started, but the data feed that we provide you has all the data within OnePlan to get these reports in the way that you need to get them. So let's get to the AI piece. We talked about, and I alluded to Sophia when I gave you the overview of OnePlan. In this particular case, Sophia is really, specifically and purpose-built for strategic portfolio management and project portfolio management. It is based on Azure OpenAI as opposed to OpenAI out in the open internet, meaning it's got some more security and compliance that you would expect from the Microsoft environment. It's also got a number of different layers to it. So for example, it leverages the large language model that's in Azure OpenAI. It's also been specifically trained on OnePlan and the SPM and PPM disciplines and the things that we can do within that. So it's been trained on those things. Also, it's going to leverage the data that you're presenting within OnePlan, but on a transactional basis and not learning from it. For those interested in whether or not it's actually learning from your data, it's actually leveraging that to formulate its response to your prompts. And that when it does that, it just uses it for the purpose of that response and then goes away. So it's basically contained within your environment and in your tenant. So the idea here is that it has multiple levels. Not only does it answer you like you'd answer a question generally in something like ChatGPT, it's also putting in context your specific needs and your specific data and your specific situation. So it's always available in OnePlan. If you look at the little blue circle in the bottom left of OnePlan, that's Sophia. And it's context sensitive. So depending on what part of the tool you're in, whether you're in the portfolio or the ideas and requests, or you're in the resource plan, it's going to give you responses and even sample prompts for you that's in context of what you're doing within that. We'll go into some of that today. So some sample use cases for AI and portfolio management. Well, Sophia can help you in all these areas. And actually, we're already expanding that and coming out with a new release here shortly that's even going to expand it further. But overall strategic planning, portfolio optimization, the work management and scheduling and planning, risk assessment, identifying where those risks are, or even help you create risk registers for different types of projects. It'll help you with resource allocation. And for the purpose of today, investment and financial forecasting is an area that's definitely part of what we do today. And this is just the main ones that we can address. So with that, I thought I would take us over to an instance of OnePlan. And let's start up in the corporate strategy area. One of the cool parts here is that you can structure how you want your strategic plans, but the way that we have here is objectives and key results, and there may be associated other elements in the system that fall within them. In this particular case, I could be looking and structuring an objective like optimize capital allocation, which is financial related, right? And then maybe the key result here might be develop and implement a comprehensive capital planning process. And within that, there may be business capabilities, products, applications, and projects that are going to be implemented to actually support that, right? And you can see the associated items within that. If we drill into the key result of develop and implement a comprehensive capital planning project, there's a couple things that we can look at here. One is there's configurable forms to characterize this key result, meaning what it is, how it's categorized, maybe even the metrics that you want to use. In this case, it's a number that you're trying to achieve and a target number on those types of things. It could be dollars, it could be a number, it could be percentages, it could be a variety of things. And also you might want to see what other things it's aligned with. In this particular case, you can see it's aligned with a particular idea that's under consideration. It's aligned with a current engagement in a project and even an application in a product today. So the idea here is when you consider this, there's a lot of things driving and contributing to the success of this key result, okay? If I came into this, for example, and I wanted to look at, the reporting side, I can actually come in here and say, let me visualize this, and I can see if there's any predecessors or successors, or in this runway to see what I'm aligned with. This key result is aligned with this particular objective, and downstream there's projects and epics and products and applications that are aligned with this. And you may see later on in the demonstration examples of this that get more complex than this. This one's fairly simple, okay? Now in the detail side of things, we can use a Sophia and the AI for a particular thing. For example, I don't have a key result description in here. And rather than start from a blank canvas, right? I could leverage Sophia in the context of just this particular field. And I could ask Sophia, maybe to generate a description for this key result. And it knows that this is develop and implement a comprehensive capital planning process. and it's giving me in pretty rich text so a description of that I can then choose to accept and make that part of this. Now I'm always open to editing and modifying this, and I could have done that before I actually put it in here. But the idea is, once again, AI is helping me not do something from scratch here. This is just one element. This can be in any part of the system. I'm not just choosing to show you this particular capability within the context of an OKR. Now, if I back out to the corporate strategy and I look at other things, I can basically do the same things by drilling into any one of these particular areas. We have the same type of capabilities within the objectives as well. So once again, just a little aspect tip. But once again, once these strategies are established, we can then put our focus on making sure the things that we do downstream for this are in alignment with that. Like, for example, in our innovation or ideation area, right? Within that area of the product, we can come in here and look at things in a variety of ways. So you can structure, once again, this innovation or idea area any way you like. In this particular case, I'm in what they call an alignment view here, and it's showing me what other key results and projects and applications and value streams I might be aligned with in here. We have a prioritization scoring mechanism that's giving us prioritization scores. It's actually presenting to us budgets and benefits. It's even calculating an ROI on the back end of that. And within an individual one, we can just basically drill in, and there'd be a form in here like we had in the objective, but it would be, let's just say, designed for you to capture things like a business case and justifications and those types of things within it. And once again, instead of just filling in fields, potentially we could use Sophia to basically help us. Now, as this gets more voluminous, and most of us have more ideas or requests than we could possibly deal with, perhaps I could come in here and ask it a question like, let me start fresh. It'll always give you some sample prompts, and we're coming out with a capability that will allow you to pin your own prompts here that you're going to use on a routine basis. But the idea here in this particular case, I'm going to ask it one that say, based on associated key results, priority, and ROI, what 3 ideas should we approve first and why? And let's see what Sophia tells us. So it's basically capturing in what it knows and looking at your data. And it's giving me an example of, I need disaster recovery. The associated key results has a lot of impact. There's high ROI and benefits, and it's high priority, etc. And it's giving me an assessment of what the highest value things that we should consider first as we go through this voice assistant integration, an ROI of 225%, and high priority and significant ROI. So the idea here is, once again, we make the final decision, but we can get insights from Sophia that help us do things and look at complex interactions, maybe more so than we can do with our own human analysis. Okay, let me go over to another model. And let's just think about, just overall portfolio management. And we talked about that cross-enterprise portfolio management before. Now, this model is showing us a portfolio of multiple portfolios, right? So this might be sitting up at the EPMO level, and different parts of the organization have their own different portfolios. Now, we can establish a primary plan type hierarchy. In this case, we got portfolios, programs, projects, epics, and then maybe even down to the feature level within an epic, if that's the way you plan for your initiatives, things you're going to work on. But for example, if I expand out in this particular portfolio, right, you can see that we have a program in here with a bunch of projects within it. One of the cool things here is you can see the icons here of the different tools our integrator is actually connected with. Some are just connected to team sites for content and collaboration, but some are connected with other things like Microsoft Planner, or with Monday.com, or with Microsoft Project or Smartsheet. So for example, you don't have to connect to anything. OnePlan has its own robust planning tools for waterfall and agile planning. But the idea here is that if you're already invested in these tools, you don't have to abandon those in order to get this full portfolio management capability. We have plenty of other webinars that actually go into that aspect of it in much more detail. But this particular list view, as we call it, is kind of KPI oriented and how we're doing from health measurements. And it has some financial information like budgets and benefits and how we're doing on progress and percent done. But once again, you can also have, different views that have a different, perspective. So for example, if I have a view that's, more financial summary oriented, this one illustrates the idea that we don't have to view things by the primary hierarchy that I described earlier on by plan types. We can group these by different things. In this case, they're all grouped by business unit, and grouped and summarized by business unit. We get to a little more detail on the financials with budget and revised forecast, actuals, remaining budget, benefits, and what the return on investment is. And you can add custom fields, calculated fields in here, and that to allow you to see those things in the way that make the most sense for you. So once again, I could group by business unit or a variety of any other data or metadata that I'm keeping here in the system. And then, ongoing trending. We have the ability to snapshot data within here. And when you go in here and you look at trending and how we're doing, if there's financial aspects that you'd like to trend or other aspects you'd like to trend, you can do that very simply. So for example, here, the budget trend, I can see where the budget is going up or down over the course of time. I'm also looking at things like issues and other things like that. So the trending is a very powerful piece that we have within here. And the other piece, I guess, if I just go to a summary view, I could totally flatten out the entire portfolio of data and leverage whatever groupings I'd like around that. So in this particular case, I'd go here and I'd say, maybe instead of by business unit, maybe I'd want to do this by category. And in this category side of things, now I'm looking at, what are the business transformation projects? What are the compliance projects? What are the IT or innovation projects? And I can either group or filter by those same parameters in here. So I can just look and focus on the things here. So we have this concept here now, which we really call, areas, but they're like a different lens. Depending on your role in the organization, your purview, and the things that are most interested to you, you can really hone in on the things that are important to you, and also, filter out any of the noise of things that aren't related to the things that you're particularly interested in on a day-to-day basis. Now, we also have board views. So for those of you in a more agile mindset, we can come in here and we can look at these things, and we can look at, in the cards, you can put whatever data you want on the cards, but you can also get to the details around that card by just quickly going to what they call a quick edit, and be able to look at the details around any particular element at any given point in time, and it'll pop out a subset or a mini version of that details page I showed you up in the OKRs. It'll pop that out for you on the side and look and give you all the details around that at any given point in time. So I can basically see why this thing is yellow, and I can see the overall status is yellow because we're behind on schedule and a little off track on the financial side of things. So once again, you can look at this thing. In this case, it's by state. But if you want to look at a board that had more financial aspects associated with it, we could come in and say, let me look at investments in goals versus active proposed projects. And once again, you can fashion these how you want. Now you can see the different goals of the columns. So I look at customer satisfaction. We allocated a $2 million budget to that particular goal, but we're actually exceeding it with a mix of projects that we have in there, or the initiatives. Grow the business, we allocated $4 million, but we only have just under 3.8 under there, et cetera. So once again, we can take a financial aspect of that, or we can take different slices anytime you want with the swim lanes and the columns and the budgets around that. We could look at proposed versus active projects by OKRs and budgets. So now, as I look at this, I look at different OKRs and budgets and take just a slightly different perspective on this. And once again, here are the OKRs and the budgets and the limits we have on this slice of it as well. If I go to our roadmap views, many people that are delivering very product and delivery oriented organizations want to do that. Now, this particular one is grouped by business unit. It's also color coded by the overall status or health, whether it's on track or whether it's at risk or off track. But let's just say, for example, very quickly, I could say, let me color these by the financial health. And now I can quickly look at this same roadmap and look at which ones are maybe at risk from a financial perspective and which ones are totally off track. And at any given point in time, I can call out that same quick edit to get to the details around all that. Now, if I go back to the list view, and let's say go back to the financial summary, this might be a place where I can leverage Sophia. So let me go in here to Sophia, and let's select one that's already here. Rank plans by highest risk of failure and explain. In this one, it's taking a look at this. It's got financial data in front of it. It's tapping its knowledge in the large language model as well as what OnePlan has trained it. And it's basically telling me, the social media strategy marketing is active and off track. It has a negative ROI. And we have some other ones that are at risk, and there's both financial and execution concerns within that. So once again, it's giving me some context of why these things are at risk and taking a number of factors into play when you do that. If I go into Sophia again, and I could say, let me select another one. Could you examine the trends and provide a summary of the current state of my portfolio? And in this one, it's really trying to give me an assessment of how the portfolio is doing and what trending there is, and let's see what it comes up with. So overall portfolio analysis, it's giving me its assessment of how our budget utilization is going. It's also giving us a status of the projects. It's also giving me some information on the ROI or return on investment that's up here. And then key highlights by category. So on the application side of things, it's now looking at the breakouts that I have here by the way I look at this by category. And it's now giving me assessment of how we're doing on each of those categories. So once again, I could run that until it's done, but the idea here is it's giving me context and analysis of which I can leverage to make my own decisions and use this fully as an assistant. Now, if I drill into a particular project, this data warehouse migration, for example, one of the first things we may see is this details page. And you may have different life cycle stages up in here. You may have this categorized in a variety of ways with different metadata and aligned with different portfolios, et cetera. The business case information may have come over from the ideation phase that we're in here when we have this as an idea within the solution, right? And then down below, you might be seeing a summary of the details that are within here, like how we prioritize this and how we arrived at a prioritization score. It might have the different associated plans that we're associated with in this as well. We also might have a high level how we're doing on the schedule, how we're doing on the project financials from the overall financial plan from the top down, and bottom up from the schedule itself, how we're doing, and maybe looking at our return on investment and how we're doing and tracking on those types of things, as well as how we're doing on resource utilization, et cetera. Now, these forms, we have templates for you, but you can configure the sections and the fields of data that you want to include ones we provide, ones you add, and it's highly flexible, so you get the picture that you want when you look at this, right? On the financial plan, since this is a financial-oriented webinar that we have here, OnePlan gives you the ability within this project to do detailed financials. Now notice I've got a category structure that has both labor and labor subcategories. It's got non-labor categories in here. It's got tagging of whether or not the information that's in here would be CapEx or OpEx. It's time phased in its nature. And here we're looking at just strictly budgeted dollars. But much like we had plan types in the portfolio, we also have the ability to have as many different cost types as we want, not cost categories, but cost types. So we might have a budget, we might have a revised forecast, actuals, benefits, or revenue, and you can add as many of these types as you need to fully define the way you track the financials within your system. So in this particular case, I'm looking at the budget. And if I wanted to compare with the revised forecast information in here, right, I can come in here and I can say, let me compare the budget to the forecast. And I can look at these each individually if I wanted to, but now I can see what my original budget was, and I can see where, for example, in February, the plan total looks like we are way overspent in February from what we thought. Now, our forecast is well within the overall budget, but we have hot spots where we may accelerate. Maybe our cash flow is going to be a little bit different. We have to spend more earlier on. But the idea is it's tracking and making those comparisons. And you can do the same thing if you're going to compare to actuals or budget versus benefits, et cetera. And in the earlier slides, we talked about, being able to track benefits and budgets and be able to have those categories in here so we can capture the actual benefits that we're looking to expect and possibly even compare them against actual benefits, not just proposed benefits, the same way we're comparing here. Okay. So in this, Sophia could come into the mix here, right? I could just select this one here. Let's see. Let's rank the cost categories by the highest risk of failure and explain. So let's see how we're doing here and what cost categories they think that we may have to, address. But let's just say that that is an example of what we might want to do. Let's look at this. How about, let me type one in or paste one in. I have one here. What if we took this and say, what are the key insights and trends that can be inferred from this financial data? And once again, it's looking at this specific plan. So this is now giving me the context of what we're looking at, and then it's going to proceed to give me analysis of what the data in here means. So basically, it's now going to give me not only overall budget versus forecast, but it's going to give me analysis for role-specific trends based on the different roles that are within our labor category. So basically, it says specific, especially in January and March 2025, it looks like there may be an underestimation or increased workload costs in these months. So basically, it's now giving me specifically the concerns it has over the developers, et cetera. So the idea here is that it's going to give me more detailed analysis and kind of elaborate that to me so I can factor that into the decisions that I ultimately make. Now, there's also resource planning in here. And as I had mentioned, the labor costs that are in there can be fed by this plan. And we can plan in terms of hours, percentages of allocation, or full-time equivalents, right? So we can look at that. It's always got an eye on the total resource capacity. So if it looks like it says I'm under 1 FTE, but I'm over allocated, it's because I've got other allocations in here that exceed it. So basically I'm over allocated by 64, 0.64 FTEs overall across the system. And we can look at that overall. But once again, these resources have rates, and that can feed into the financial plan I just showed you, based upon those the rates that we have and what's been allocated on this project. Now, I would say this, we can do status reports off of this, of which, just like the details page, you can fashion a status report that has whatever financial components in here you want, and it'll grab that information automatically and create a status report for you each period without you having to manually create it, but still allow you the ability to put in your own narratives for each period, and then actually save a version of that each particular period. And you can choose to have those snapshotted to provide the trending information that we talked about earlier on. Very important in financial aspects. Also, from a dashboarding perspective, I talked in the slides about the reporting. Now, we have an OData feed and a very robust report pack for Power BI that we provided people with our solution. We're actually coming out with our own report pack natively within OnePlan. But the idea here is you could use our OData feed in other reporting tools. If you're using Tableau or something else like that, it can leverage that. And we can then look at things like overall financial summaries. In this case, I'm within a particular project, and it's giving me financial information and reporting for this particular project at this stage. But this could be run, the same thing could be run at the portfolio level, could be run at the program level, whatever makes the most sense for the analysis you're trying to do at that particular point in time. And then once again, I talked about the visualizer that I showed you when we were up in the, innovation area and up in the objectives and key results. And I can see the predecessors to these particular projects and the successors. But the runway is going to give me a comprehensive view of this data warehouse migration and see it's actually supporting a number of different key results, which in turn support a number of different objectives. But we're also associated with certain products, applications, business capabilities, and value streams that need to succeed, ideally for us to succeed with ours. And at any given point in time, if you're dependent on something or associated with something, you can look at the details and maybe why something's showing off track and get the details around that at any given point in time to be always informed and current. Okay. And I think the last thing I'll stop with here is the modeler. The idea here is, once again, to be able to do what if scenario modeling. And, let me just go and start where we can create a model that, for my particular area, that, looks at the projects and initiatives and the ideas that I'm interested in. And here there's a world here of 43 of them that we're looking at. And if I look at the financial aspects of it here, it's going to show me, if I did all these things, right, it would require basically over $20 million. Now, I don't have $20 million. It may also require a certain amount of resourcing in here. And whether or not it fits within the capacity that I have, it looks like I have a significant amount of red or overage that may be difficult for me to get this done. So what we can do is we can start doing as many scenarios as we like against this model. And in this particular case, let's just say, I was going to give myself a constraint of $10 million instead of that $20 million. And I looked at things like prioritization scores and alignment and other things like that. And I can select and deselect what is in and what is out based upon priorities and other factors that I might have, but then also do that with the context that I can fit it within a particular budget. So out of those 43, with these 20 projects selected, it fits within or close to within that $10 million budget, right, that I can do within that, right? And I can also look at this thing from a context of, well, what if I had $15 million, right? And I can look at that and basically say, well, I could do 6 more projects if I had another $5 million. Now, ultimately, I could compare and analyze as many scenarios as I have and see, all right, 26 versus 20 projects, the benefits I get out of that, let's see, for another $5 million, I'm getting less than another $4 million in benefit. Is it worth spending the $5 million? If this was a much bigger number for the $15 million scenario, it might be worth me trying to find a way to fund that $15 million. I can also look at this stuff and look at, the details around this and basically compare the different scenarios. So for example, I can sit there and say, what I want to compare the 15 and the 10 together. And I can do a comparison. It can tell me what's in and what's out and at what relative priority in each of the different scenarios. And I can even, report those types of things. And what's really cool about that, not only the resource and the financials, I can also look at this from the context of the visualizer that I showed you earlier on. But this way, it's being used in a slightly different way. Here's saying all the plans that are selected in this scenario, here's unselected predecessors and unselected successors. Should I be considering not excluding them because I need to do these to get these others? It's a factor in our decision-making that we might want to look at. It's a pretty insightful piece of information. The other key piece in here is we got the bubble charts. Those of you that do, portfolio prioritization a lot and analysis, you are familiar with the bubble chart approach. This one's comparing benefits and prioritization scores. And this is saying, okay, we're all on the above 50% on the prioritization scores. The benefits vary, but the idea here is that we look at the things that we didn't select. Are there things that we should consider just from a prioritization and benefits basis that should reconsider just because it was excluded? But we get to do that analysis here with each of these different scenarios. So just to give you a relative idea of how we can do that and look at that from the financial aspect. But I could just basically see on this $15 million scenario, if I open up the financials on that, you can see that I've got a plan now that is actually just under $14 million. So I actually might have the ability to fit something else in, right? That was on the outside of things. So for example, if I am just about $1 million shy, let's just say I was going to add that Asana project into the mix. Right now I'm here at this $14 million level, and it's basically on the overall budget. It upped this, well, for the period total, it upped it over $10 million. So we have the total budget, and then we have the budget that fits within the period, which is for the year. So once again, we can balance that out as we go through, and then we can save different increments to these different scenarios. All right. So hopefully that gave you an idea of some of the financial aspects and how Sophia could potentially be used. By no means was it exhaustive. There's other things that we can do with portfolio optimization. For example, you could decide to select projects based on certain criteria. I showed that a little bit live with my own set of criteria on the ROI. There's voting that's done, and you can factor in public sentiment on that in your crowdsourcing, et cetera. You could actually do resource capacity planning. In this particular case, you could do the same thing with a financial plan, but I can ask it, here's a plan that I don't have a resource plan for, and I'm asking it to give me a sample resource plan for this particular project. And it knows the duration that I gave it. It knows things about the type of project that it is. And it's giving me a time-phased resource plan based on what it knows so far, and gives me the assumptions. But it's kind of interesting. It knows that we would need a business analyst up front more, and we need a QA engineer back end more, right? And that type of thing. So it's giving me those types of things based upon the assumptions of what it knows, and I can apply this within the solution. I could also then take that in an overall resource plan and look at it across the organization and say, what resources do I need to hire? And they could come in here and let me know that, based upon this very over-allocated plan that's in red, it's basically telling me that I need resources in the following areas. So it's telling me, it's giving me the high-level analysis on each of the roles that are allocated within here. But then it's going to ask a follow-on question about how many of each resource do I need to hire, and of each type, of each role. And in this particular case, it's giving me an idea based upon those. This is what I would need to either contract or hire if I intend to do this entire portfolio of work. So pretty cool stuff. On the AI side, on the financial side, I think I did this one live, so I don't need to play the recording on here, but another one, what are the key insights and trends? It's a general question, but basically you can look at what you have in your financial data, either within a project or across the board, across the entire portfolio. So summary and next steps. What we covered here today is that financial management is a critical success factor for PPM and SPM success. And then costs do need to be planned, estimated, budgeted, and tracked for project success and overall portfolio and organizational success. And many organizations are still using disconnected spreadsheets and manual processes, at least in part of these disciplines. And that OnePlan provides a great AI-enabled platform for all PPM and SPM capabilities you might need. It provides visibility into a centralized organizational-wide view of all this data. It also enhances all aspects of top-down financial planning and analysis and bottom-up. It also aligns financial plans and initiatives with your organizational strategies, and it'll help by providing consistent financial information across diverse methodologies and tools. So of all the different projects we had in there, some of them might have been agile, some of them might have been waterfall, some of them may have been a hybrid of the two. It supports all that with a common financial mechanism across all of it. OnePlan is fully integrated and embedded in the Microsoft Cloud, not just Sophia delivered from Azure. OnePlan is delivered from Microsoft Azure and the Microsoft Cloud. So all the security and compliance that you would expect is around that. And it is integrated extremely well with your Microsoft ecosystem, even leverages your own Active Directory, now called Entra ID, as your authentication mechanism. And our connector platform can integrate with a number of different tools, but for this context, it's specifically financial applications that you want to get data to and from. Now, OnePlan does this as a focus area. This is not a sideline for us. It's not just a bolt-on module. We live and breathe portfolio management for our customers. And we're continuously recognized by Microsoft as a partner. We were named a winner and finalist globally 5 consecutive years in this discipline of project and portfolio management. We're in the Gartner Voice of the Customer Peer Insights for 2023 and 2024 into that quadrant for strategic portfolio management. Forrester put us in their Forrester Wave for strategic portfolio management as a strong performer. And Infotech Research identifies us as a top vendor in this discipline as well. We also offer free trials. Go to oneplan.ai/solutions or up to Microsoft App Source. If you want to try out the things that you saw here today, we have a number of different templates up there, but the most full functional one that does everything that I showed you today, get the strategic portfolio management template and give us a try. Now, reach out to us. We're happy to chaperone you through that. Make sure you get the best trial experience. You don't have to go it alone. So take us up on the free trial. We also offer roadmap workshops. If you're interested in saying, hey, this is where I am, this is what I want to accomplish, what's the steps for me to get there? We're happy to have a conversation with you and give you a roadmap of what that might look like, including total cost of what you might need. Because we are a Microsoft-based solution, you may own a lot of the things you already need. And if you're not quite there yet and you want just more information and a personalized one-on-one demo, I was very high level today, just reach out to and contact us. We'd love to engage with you. Reach out at contact@oneplan.ai, or if you're not even there yet, just research us more at www.oneplan.ai. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time. I know it's valuable. Thanks for carving it out of your day. So you can reach out to us at the general contact number, or if you want to contact me directly, my email is right there below. You will get an email with a copy of the slides as well as a link to the recording. Thank you and have a good day.